President Trump says America's going to have an ownership interest in Gaza. And maybe the people who used to live there shouldn't come back. Let's break down the significance of this, the reality of it, and a host of other topics that are falling on our watch with a great group of people. Former RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel, NewsNation political contributor and the host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast, my favorite title of any podcast, Chris Hahn, and attorney and citizen of the world, Arthur Aidala. It is good to have you.
What's happening, man?
And you're saying, what the hell am I doing here? There are legal issues with this, but first things first. My posit is, seeing how the envoy that the president picked was going to come on the show and immediately got pulled into a meeting and had to not come on.
Steve Whitcock?
Yeah, so he couldn't come on because he had to go to a meeting.
They knew I was here. They knew they didn't.
You'll take care of it. I don't believe that what we heard is what we're going to hear again. What is your take?
Yeah, I heard your earlier show. I'm very happy to be here, even with that. Listen, I don't think that this is something we're going to hear again. You saw Netanyahu kind of say, well, we'll look at it, we'll review it. Obviously, this is President Trump always thinking outside the box, always looking at different things, but it's going to have input from Arab partners. It's going to have input from Israel. I don't know if this is going to be something that's going to be a long-term strategy.
I mean, look, the weird thing is, how do you respond to it? I had Maxine Waters on. She took an obvious route, which was believe everything he says. This guy will monetize anything. He's a bad guy. The idea of what got you here will keep you here if you don't change. Do Democrats have to change their tone and how to respond to this?
100%. Right? We can't take everything he says and go nuts about it, right? Clearly, he sees waterfront property, thinks he's going to develop it. That's in his mind, right? But we have to say, what are the solutions? What are we going to do to keep the people of Gaza and to keep the people of Israel safe, get the hostages back, keep the deal going? My biggest concern about this is, what does this do to the peace deal that they're currently, such a fragile truce they have right now? Does this upend that? And I think that's the question Democrats should be asking, rather than saying, is he really going to take over Gaza and kick 2.5 million people? How are you going to get 2.5 million people just to leave? You're going to walk them to Egypt? I mean, I don't even know how that logistically works.
How you get boots on the ground. You know, Arthur, when we were discussing the election, one of the things that it seemed like he had a clear path on was, boy, did they botch getting out of Afghanistan. And boy, were the American people tired of seeing their blood and treasure wasted on situations that don't matter. No situation checks the box of you never getting out of there with what you put into it, like the Middle East. Is this something that he shouldn't have said, or could there be a higher plan that we're missing?
I think the second one. I think there may be a higher plan. You know, I actually read Jared Kushner's book, and, you know, they had a lot of victories in the first administration. And although his son-in-law has said he's going to stay out of this, the administration, not when it comes to the Middle East. I know for a fact they're still counting on him. I know he's also, the president is consulting with our friend Professor Dershowitz on this. I do agree with Maxine Waters, not in a negative way, but this is his sweet spot. This is how we grew up, right? He sees the land. He can see an opportunity. This is easy for him. This is you doing the news. This is you. Right? This is you doing breaking news. Like, this is easy stuff for him. And he still has his whole company going, his still operation going, and say, hey, you guys were there. You screwed the whole thing up. We're just going to take it over, and I wouldn't put it past them.
But it requires something that nobody in America wants. You would have to have, what, 100,000 troops on the ground?
He would have to have support from Israel and Arab partners. I mean, look at what he's done with the Abraham Accords. Look what he did with moving the embassy. I mean, Trump has thought outside the box. And I remember sitting with him when he moved the embassy, and everybody was, oh, this is going to cause so much unrest in the Middle East, and we can't move the embassy to Jerusalem. And I remember him saying this at a meeting. He said, we'll never find peace in the Middle East with this still on the table. So once we take this off the table, we can negotiate. And that's how he thinks. He thinks differently. So I do think he's right that the same old isn't working, and we do have to think differently when it comes to Gaza.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.